The fresh bruises were impossible to hide in the summer heat. I tugged at my sleeve for the 100th time that morning, wincing as the fabric grazed the tender skin of my forearm. July in Boston was unforgiving, and the mansion's air conditioning only reached certain rooms, never the ones I cleaned. My name is Eliza Morgan, and I had been working as a housekeeper at the Bellamy estate for 3 weeks. The pay was better than anything I could have found elsewhere with my limited resume, especially since my divorce from Ray had left me with nothing but debts and nightmares. The job was straightforward: clean the west wing of the sprawling mansion, never venture into the east wing, and most importantly, never disturb Mr. Bellamy. I had never seen the owner of the estate. The staff spoke of him in hushed whispers, their voices dropping to a reverent murmur whenever his name was mentioned. Vincent Bellamy. Even his name carried weight, seemed to press against the air when spoken aloud. I'd gathered bits and pieces about him from the other staff: a businessman with diverse interests, unmarried, intensely private, and according to the head housekeeper, Mrs. Sullivan, not someone whose path I wanted to cross. Keep your head down, do your work, and you'll be fine, she had told me on my first day, her thin lips pressed into a line so severe it seemed carved into her face. Mr. Bellamy values discretion above all else. I needed this job. After escaping my marriage 6 months ago, I had been bouncing between friends' couches and temporary shelters, picking up whatever work I could find. When Mrs. Sullivan had hired me, it felt like the first stroke of luck in years. The estate provided staff quarters, small but private, and the salary would eventually help me afford my own place, far from Ray's reach, or so I had thought. He had found me 3 days ago, waiting in the staff parking lot as I finished my shift. How he had tracked me down, I wasn't sure. Maybe he had followed one of my friends, or perhaps bribed someone at the employment agency. Ray had always been resourceful when it came to controlling me. "You think you can just leave?" he had snarled, grabbing my arm as I tried to walk past him. "You're my wife." "Ex-wife," I had corrected him, immediately regretting the defiance when his fingers dug deeper into my flesh. The confrontation had ended like they always did, with promises that he would change, that he still loved me, that I belonged with him. When words failed to persuade me, his fists made a more convincing argument. I had escaped only when another staff member had walked toward the lot, causing Ray to release me with a final warning. "This isn't over, Liza. I'll be back. You know you can't hide from me." Now, as I scrubbed the marble floor of the grand foyer, I could feel the imprints of his fingers on my skin as clearly as if he were still holding me. The sleeves of my uniform had ridden up again, exposing the violet archipelago of bruises that stretched from my wrist to my elbow. I quickly pulled the fabric down, glancing nervously around the empty hall. The mansion was eerily quiet that morning. Mrs. Sullivan had informed me that most of the staff had been given the day off due to Mr. Bellamy holding a business meeting. I had been kept on specifically to ensure the West Wing remained immaculate. The solitude was both a blessing and a curse. No prying eyes to notice my injuries, but also no witnesses if Ray decided to make good on his threat. The grandfather clock in the corner struck 11, its deep chime reverberating through the empty space. I had 4 more hours of work before I could retreat to my quarters. 4 hours to figure out what to do about Ray. I couldn't afford to lose this job, but I couldn't risk him showing up again either. I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear the footsteps until they were almost upon me. When I finally registered the sound, I looked up, expecting to see Mrs. Sullivan checking on my progress. Instead, I found myself staring at polished Italian leather shoes, leading up to tailored charcoal trousers, an impeccably fitted suit jacket, and finally, a face that made my breath catch in my throat. Vincent Bellamy didn't look like the monsters from the stories I'd overheard. He was younger than I had imagined, perhaps in his late 30s, with sharp features that seemed carved from marble, high cheekbones, a strong jaw darkened with the shadow of a beard, and eyes so intensely blue they appeared almost colorless. His dark hair was pushed back from his forehead, revealing a thin scar that ran along his right temple. But it wasn't his appearance that made me freeze. It was the unmistakable aura of danger that surrounded him like a cloak. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, each step deliberate and controlled. Behind him stood a mountain of a man, arms crossed and expression blank, clearly security of some kind. I scrambled to my feet, nearly slipping on the wet marble in my haste. "I'm sorry, sir, I didn't." His gaze swept over me, cataloging and assessing in a single glance. When his eyes landed on my exposed forearm, where my sleeve had betrayed me once again, they narrowed almost imperceptibly. "You must be the new hire." His voice was unexpectedly soft, a smooth baritone that somehow made me more nervous than if he had shouted. "Eliza, correct?" My pulse stuttered. How did he know my name? "Yes, sir." "I apologize for being in your way. I'll move to another area immediately." He remained perfectly still, his eyes never leaving the darkened skin of my arm. "That won't be necessary." Then, with a slight inclination of his head, he addressed the man behind him. "Marco, tell the others I'll be delayed. 10 minutes. Marco nodded and retreated without a word, leaving me alone with Vincent Bellamy. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. "How long have you worked here, Eliza?" he asked, sliding his hands into his pockets in a gesture that should have appeared casual, but instead seemed calculated. 3 weeks, sir." My voice sounded small even to my own ears. "And do you find the work satisfactory?" I wasn't sure what answer he was looking for. "Yes, sir. Mrs. Sullivan runs a tight ship, but the position is exactly what I needed." He took a step closer, and I instinctively backed away, my hip bumping against the bucket of cleaning water, some of it sloshed over the side, splashing onto the floor I had just polished. "Oh, God, I'm sorry," I gasped, dropping to my knees to mop up the spill before it could spread. In my panic, I didn't notice him moving until his shadow fell over me. Then, impossibly, he was kneeling as well, his expensive suit mere inches from the wet floor. "Sir, please, you'll ruin your arm," he interrupted, his voice still measured but with an undercurrent I couldn't identify. "Those bruises, they're recent." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "It's nothing. I'm clumsy, that's all." His eyes met mine, and I had the distinct feeling he was seeing straight through the lie. "I dislike being lied to, Eliza." My throat went dry. "I'm sorry. Don't apologize for things that aren't your fault." He reached out slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal, and pushed my sleeve up further, exposing the full extent of the damage. His touch was light, clinical almost, but it sent a jolt through me nonetheless. "This was done to you." I couldn't speak. No one had ever confronted the bruises so directly before. Friends had noticed over the years, of course, but they had looked away, uncomfortable with the reality of what Ray was doing to me. This stranger, this dangerous man, was the first person to acknowledge them without flinching. "Who?" he asked. And there was something in that single word that made me shiver. It wasn't curiosity, it was the calm certainty of someone accustomed to getting answers. "It doesn't matter," I whispered. "I can handle it, clearly." The sarcasm in his tone was mild but unmistakable. He stood in one fluid motion, adjusting his cufflinks. "Finish your work, Eliza. We'll speak again." Before I could respond, he turned and strode away, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. I remained kneeling, my pulse racing, until the sound faded entirely. That night, I couldn't sleep. The brief encounter with Vincent Bellamy played on repeat in my mind, his eyes lingering on my bruises, his voice asking who with such quiet authority. I tossed and turned in my small bed, the sheets tangling around my legs like restraints. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Ray. "Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Staff lot. Be there, or I come inside to find you." The message sent ice through my veins. If Ray caused a scene here, I would lose everything. My job, my quarters, my chance at starting over. I considered calling the police, but previous attempts at restraining orders had only enraged him further. Ray had friends on the force. Reports mysteriously disappeared. I must have eventually fallen asleep, because I woke to pounding on my door at 6 a.m. Mrs. Sullivan's voice cut through the wood, sharp as a knife. "Eliza, Mr. Bellamy's office." Now, my stomach dropped. Had I done something wrong yesterday? Was I being fired? I dressed quickly in my uniform, trying to make myself as presentable as possible. Mrs. Sullivan was waiting in the hallway, her thin face pinched with an emotion I couldn't read. "What's happening?" I asked as she led me through the mansion, past the boundary I had been warned never to cross, into the East Wing. "Mr. Bellamy wants to see you. That's all I know," but her tone suggested she knew more than she was saying. We stopped at a heavy wooden door at the end of a long corridor. Mrs. Sullivan knocked twice, then opened it without waiting for a response. "She's here, sir. Send her in." The now familiar voice floated from inside. Mrs. Sullivan gave me a strange look. Was it pity? Before ushering me into the room and closing the door behind me, Vincent Bellamy sat behind a massive desk of dark wood, reading from a file. He didn't look up immediately, leaving me standing awkwardly by the door, taking in the surroundings. The office was opulent but tasteful, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, and large windows overlooking the estate grounds. Finally, he closed the file and raised his eyes to mine. "Sit down, Eliza." I moved to the chair across from him, perching on the edge as if ready to flee at any moment. In the morning light filtering through the windows, I could see details I had missed yesterday, the flecks of gray in his blue eyes, the subtle lines at their corners that suggested he wasn't as young as I'd initially thought. "Your ex-husband has quite the record," he said without preamble, tapping the file in front of him. 3 arrests for domestic violence, 2 restraining orders, both expired, numerous complaints from neighbors about disturbances, and yet, somehow, no convictions. My blood turned to ice. "How did you—" "I make it my business to know who works in my home." His expression remained neutral. "What I don't understand is why you didn't mention this when you applied. My voice faltered. "I needed the job, and I thought I had lost him when I moved here." "Yet he found you." It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. "He contacted you last night." Again, not a question. My eyes widened. How could you possibly know that? The corner of his mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. As I said, I make it my business to know what happens in my home. The implication sent a chill through me. Was my phone monitored? My room? As if reading my thoughts, he continued. "The staff quarters have security cameras in the hallways. You received a message at 12:07 a.m. that clearly distressed you. You paced your room for nearly an hour afterward." I swallowed hard. "He's coming today, at 5. He threatened to come inside if I don't meet him." Vincent leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "And what do you intend to do about that?" "I don't know," I admitted. "If I call the police, it won't help. He has connections. If I refuse to see him, he'll make a scene and I'll lose my job. If I meet him—" I trailed off, the alternative too frightening to voice. "If you meet him, those bruises on your arm will have company." He finished my thought with brutal efficiency. Which leads me to my proposition. Proposition? I find myself in need of a personal assistant. The position comes with a significant salary increase, better quarters, and most importantly, my direct protection. I stared at him, uncomprehending. "You want me to be your assistant? But I'm just a housekeeper. I don't have any experience." "Experience can be gained. Loyalty and discretion are harder to come by." He stood, walking to the window to gaze out at the grounds. "You've been thorough in your work, kept to yourself, and asked no questions about things that don't concern you. Those qualities interest me." My mind raced. This had to be some kind of test or trick. Men like Vincent Bellamy didn't offer career advancements to women like me without expecting something in return. What would this position entail exactly? He turned back to face me, expression unreadable. "Managing my schedule, coordinating with my security team, handling certain sensitive communications, nothing beyond your capabilities. And in return? In return, you get a problem solved." His voice dropped slightly. "Your ex-husband will no longer be a concern." A chill ran down my spine. "What does that mean?" "It means exactly what you think it means, Eliza." He returned to his desk, his movements fluid and predatory. "I protect what belongs to me." His words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. "I protect what belongs to me." The possessive phrasing sent a shiver down my spine, not entirely from fear. "I don't belong to anyone, Mr. Bellamy," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, perhaps, or respect. Not yet. Before I could respond to that loaded statement, he continued, "Your shift today is canceled. Marco will escort you to your quarters to gather your belongings. Your new accommodations will be ready by noon." "I haven't agreed to anything," I protested weakly. Vincent Bellamy didn't even blink. "You will." It wasn't arrogance in his voice, but absolute certainty, unless you prefer the alternative. The alternative. Ray waiting in the parking lot at 5, his rage building with every passing minute, his hands itching to remind me who I belonged to. I thought of the years I'd spent walking on eggshells, making myself smaller, hiding bruises beneath long sleeves in summer. I thought of police reports filed and dismissed, of friends who stopped calling because they couldn't bear to watch. "What exactly would you do about Ray?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Vincent's expression remained impassive. "The less you know, the better, but I can promise you this, he will never touch you again." A knock at the door interrupted us. Marco entered without waiting for permission, his massive frame filling the doorway. "The car is ready, sir." Vincent nodded, then turned his attention back to me. "You have a choice to make, Eliza. Make it now." It wasn't really a choice at all. I accept the position. A slight smile curved his lips, there and gone in an instant. "Wise decision." He scribbled something on a piece of paper and handed it to me. "Your new salary. Effective immediately." I glanced at the figure and nearly gasped. It was 4 times what I was making as a housekeeper. "Marco will take you to collect your things. Meet me back here at 2. He turned his attention to some papers on his desk, dismissing me. Marco led me silently through the mansion and back to the staff quarters. My room, which had seemed like a sanctuary just yesterday, now looked shabby and impersonal as I packed my meager belongings into a single suitcase. I had fled my marriage with little more than the clothes on my back, and 6 months of scraping by hadn't allowed me to accumulate much. As I zipped the suitcase closed, a text came through on my phone, changed my mind. "Coming at noon. Be ready." My hands trembled as I showed the message to Marco, who had been standing impassively by the door. His expression didn't change, but he immediately pressed a finger to his earpiece. "Package needs to be moved now. Timeline accelerated." A pause. "Understood." He took my suitcase and gestured for me to follow him. "Change of plans. We move you now." Instead of returning to the mansion, Marco led me to a sleek black SUV with tinted windows waiting at a side entrance. The vehicle screamed money and discretion, exactly what I'd expect from Vincent Bellamy's operation. "Where are we going?" I asked, as Marco loaded my suitcase into the trunk. "Safe location," was his only response as he opened the rear door for me. To my surprise, Vincent was already seated inside, his attention focused on a laptop. He didn't look up as I slid in beside him, leaving a careful distance between us. "Your ex-husband is persistent," he remarked, still typing. "He's currently parked 2 blocks away, watching the main entrance." I froze. "How do you—" "I have eyes everywhere, Eliza." He finally closed the laptop and turned those piercing blue eyes on me. "Did you tell anyone about our conversation?" "No," I shook my head. "I came straight from your office to pack." He studied me for a moment, as if gauging my honesty, then nodded slightly. "Good." The SUV pulled away from the estate, taking a back route I hadn't known existed. Marco sat in the passenger seat while another man drove, both of them silent and vigilant. I watched through the tinted window as the mansion receded from view, wondering what I had just gotten myself into. "You're afraid," Vincent observed, his voice neutral. "Wouldn't you be?" I countered, then immediately regretted my tone. "I'm sorry, don't apologize for honesty. It's refreshing." He leaned back in his seat, seemingly relaxed despite the tension thrumming through the vehicle. "Yes, I would be afraid in your position. Fear is a natural response to uncertainty. But I can provide certainty, Eliza. Safety, security, things you haven't had in a long time." I turned to look at him fully. In exchange for what exactly? Loyalty, discretion. His eyes held mine, and in time, perhaps more. The implication hung between us, unspoken but unmistakable. My cheeks warmed, and I looked away first. I'm not... The words tumbled out incoherently. "I'm not proposing anything inappropriate, Eliza." His voice had a hint of amusement now. "At least, not yet. For now, I simply require your professional services as my assistant." Before I could respond, Marco's voice cut in from the front. "Sir, we have a tale." Vincent's demeanor shifted instantly, all traces of amusement vanishing. How many? One vehicle. Blue sedan, single occupant, amateur hour. Ray? I breathed, my heart pounding. He must have seen me get into the SUV. Vincent placed a hand on my arm, not where the bruises were, but just below. His touch surprisingly gentle. He won't get near you. He pressed a button on the console between us. Change of plans. Take us to the downtown property. Yes, sir. The driver responded, smoothly changing lanes. Vincent turned back to me. Ray Miller, 34 years old, construction foreman with a drinking problem and a history of violence that started long before he met you. His father was the same, I understand. I stared at him, shocked by the accuracy and depth of his knowledge. How could you possibly know all that? Information is power, Eliza. I make it my business to know everything about everyone who enters my orbit. His eyes narrowed slightly. What I don't understand is why you stayed with him for 5 years. The question struck like a physical blow. It was the same question friends had asked, that I had asked myself countless times during sleepless nights. It's complicated. Simplify it for me. I took a deep breath, looking down at my hands. It didn't start bad. He was charming, attentive, made me feel special. By the time I saw the red flags, I was already isolated from friends and family. He controlled the money, the car, and he always promised it would never happen again. I gave a bitter laugh, until the next time, and the next. Vincent said nothing for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he reached inside his jacket and pulled out a sleek phone, handing it to me. This is yours now. Only 3 numbers are programmed into it. Mine, Marco's, and the security team's. Your old phone will be disposed of. I took it hesitantly. But all my contacts, anyone who matters, you'll remember their number, he said dismissively. The rest weren't protecting you anyway. He wasn't wrong. I slipped the new phone into my pocket just as the SUV pulled into an underground garage beneath a gleaming high-rise in downtown Boston. We're clear, Marco announced from the front. No tail. Vincent nodded. Take the elevator directly to the penthouse. Security Protocol Alpha. Everything moved with military precision after that. Marco and the driver flanked us through the garage to a private elevator that required both a key card and Vincent's fingerprint to operate. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of another black SUV pulling in, 2 more security personnel emerging with guns visible beneath their jackets. The elevator ascended silently, and I tried to calm my racing thoughts. Less than 24 hours ago, I had been a housekeeper worried about keeping my modest job. Now I was in a private elevator with a man who was almost certainly involved in organized crime, fleeing from my abusive ex-husband, about to start a job I knew nothing about. When the doors opened, they revealed a stunning penthouse apartment, all floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, and breathtaking views of Boston Harbor. Your accommodations, Vincent said, stepping into the space as if he owned it, which, of course, he did. You'll stay here until the situation with your ex-husband is resolved. I followed him into the apartment, my eyes wide. I can't accept this. It's too much. Vincent gave me a look that suggested he found my protest amusing. It's a company property, Eliza. I keep it for visiting associates who require privacy. He gestured toward a hallway. Your room is the second door on the right. Mine is at the end of the hall. My breath caught. You're staying here too. Of course. He moved to the kitchen, opening the refrigerator and removing a bottle of water. Did you think I would leave you unprotected? Before I could respond, the elevator chimed again, and Marco entered carrying my suitcase. He set it down and spoke quietly to Vincent, who nodded. Ray Miller has returned to the estate, Vincent informed me after Marco had departed. He's becoming quite the nuisance. A cold fear gripped me. Will he hurt anyone there looking for me? Vincent's expression darkened. He won't get past the gate. He checked his watch. I have business to attend to. Make yourself comfortable. There's food in the kitchen, clothes in the closet that should fit you, and anything else you need, you can ask Marco to procure. Clothes? I repeated, confused. How would you have... Your size was in your employment file. He said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world to have new clothes waiting for an employee he had just promoted hours ago. I'll return this evening. We'll discuss your duties then. With that, he was gone, leaving me alone in the luxurious apartment. I stood frozen for several minutes, overwhelmed by the rapid changes in my circumstances. Finally, curiosity overcame shock, and I made my way to my room. It was larger than the entire staff quarters I had occupied that morning. A king-sized bed dominated the space, with an ensuite bathroom visible through an open door. Just as Vincent had said, the walk-in closet contained women's clothing. Simple but expensive pieces in exactly my size. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process everything. My phone, my old phone, buzzed in my pocket. Ray again. "Where the fuck are you? I'm at your work. They say you quit. Answer me." A moment later, another message. "You think you can hide from me? I'll find you." You know I always do. My hands trembled as I turned off the phone completely. Vincent was right. I needed to cut all ties to my old life. Ray would never stop looking for me otherwise. I showered in the luxurious bathroom, letting hot water wash away the stress of the day, then changed into some of the new clothes, simple black pants and a soft gray sweater that probably cost more than I used to make in a week. As evening approached, I explored the penthouse more thoroughly. The kitchen was stocked with food and wine. The living area featured a state-of-the-art entertainment system, and a small office contained a computer and printer. Every room showcased the same stunning views of the city, now glittering with lights as dusk fell. I was standing at the window, watching boats move through the harbor, when I heard the elevator chime. Vincent entered, followed by Marco, both of them looking grim. "Is everything okay?" I asked, immediately sensing the tension. Vincent removed his suit jacket and loosened his tie. "Everything is fine. Marco, that will be all for tonight." Marco nodded and departed without a word, leaving us alone. Vincent poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter on the bar. "Would you like one?" "No, thank you." I remained by the window, suddenly nervous again in his presence. He took a long sip, his eyes never leaving mine. "Your ex-husband caused quite a scene at the estate today. Threatened the security guards, demanded to see you. When that failed, he tried to bribe one of the gardeners for information." My stomach knotted with anxiety. "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "No," Vincent said sharply. "It's his fault. Never apologize for his actions." I nodded, taken aback by his vehemence. He set his glass down and approached me, stopping just close enough that I had to tilt my head up to maintain eye contact. "Ray Miller is a problem that needs to be solved, Eliza. Tonight." The way he said it sent a chill through me. "What are you going to do to him? What do you want me to do to him?" he countered, his voice soft but intense. "I just want him to leave me alone," I whispered. "I want to not be afraid anymore." Vincent studied me for a long moment. "There are different ways to achieve that. Some more permanent than others." I understood his meaning instantly. "You're asking if I want you to kill him?" He didn't confirm or deny, just watched me with those piercing blue eyes. "No," I said finally. "I don't want that. I just want him gone from my life." Vincent nodded slightly. "That can be arranged, but you should know, Eliza, men like Ray don't stop unless they're made to stop. He will continue to hunt you, to threaten you, to hurt you if he finds you. Are you prepared for that possibility?" I thought about Ray's persistence, his rage, his obsessive need to control me. "What's the alternative?" "As I said, permanent solutions." He touched my face gently, his fingertips barely grazing my cheek. "But that decision must be yours, not mine." His touch sent an unexpected warmth through me. I stepped back, confused by my reaction. I don't want his death on my conscience." Vincent's expression was unreadable. "Very well. I'll handle it my way then." He picked up his phone and sent a text, then turned back to me. "It's done. By morning, Ray Miller will no longer be a concern." I stared at him, both relieved and terrified by the casual power he wielded. "Just like that?" "Just like that." He moved to the kitchen. "Have you eaten?" "I find I'm rather hungry." The abrupt change of subject left me speechless for a moment. No, I haven't." "Good. We'll have dinner and I'll explain your new duties." He opened the refrigerator as if we hadn't just been discussing making my ex-husband disappear. "I hope you like Italian." Dinner was surreal. Vincent moved around the kitchen with unexpected grace, preparing pasta carbonara while I sat at the island counter, watching his hands work with efficient precision. The domesticity of the scene contrasted sharply with our earlier conversation about my ex-husband's impending disappearance. "You cook," I observed, unable to hide my surprise. His lips quirked in what might have been a smile. "I contain multitudes, Eliza." He slid a glass of red wine toward me. "You seem nervous. Can you blame me?" I took a small sip of the wine, rich and complex, undoubtedly expensive. 24 hours ago I was scrubbing your floors. Now I'm having dinner with you while your people do something to my ex-husband. Vincent's eyes met mine as he plated the pasta. "If you're uncomfortable with the arrangement, you're free to leave. The door isn't locked." We both knew that was a hollow offer. Where would I go? Back to dodging Ray? To sleeping on friends' couches? To working minimum wage jobs that barely covered rent? "I'm not uncomfortable," I admitted. "I'm adjusting." He placed a steaming plate in front of me. "Eat. We'll discuss your duties afterward." The pasta was delicious, creamy, perfectly cooked, with just the right amount of pancetta and black pepper. We ate in relative silence, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. I found myself studying Vincent when he wasn't looking. The precise way he held his fork. The subtle tension in his shoulders despite his apparent relaxation. The way his eyes constantly scanned the room. Always aware, always vigilant. After dinner, he led me to the living area, gesturing for me to sit on the sleek leather sofa while he remained standing, looking out at the harbor. "Your position as my personal assistant will require absolute discretion," he began without preamble. "You will manage my schedule, coordinate with my security team, and handle sensitive communications. You will accompany me to certain meetings and events. You will have access to information that others would kill for. The salary I mentioned is non-negotiable, as is your loyalty." I took another sip of wine to steady my nerves. "What exactly is your business, Mr. Bellamy?" He turned to face me, expression unreadable. "Import, export, primarily. Real estate, financial consulting. Nothing that would concern you directly." The vague answer confirmed my suspicions. Vincent Bellamy was not just a wealthy businessman. He was something else entirely, something dangerous. And if I hear or see things that concern me? I asked carefully. "You won't," he replied with absolute certainty, "because you'll understand that what I do is necessary in a world where the rules are written by men who have never had to fight to survive. Men like your ex-husband, who hurt others with impunity because the system protects them." His eyes hardened. "I provide balance." A shiver ran down my spine. There was truth in his words. Hadn't I experienced firsthand how the system had failed to protect me from Ray? How many times had I called the police, only for them to leave without making an arrest? How many restraining orders had been ignored without consequences? "So you're some kind of vigilante?" I asked, unable to keep the skepticism from my voice. Vincent actually laughed at that, a rich, genuine sound that transformed his face. "Hardly. I'm a businessman who understands that power requires both the carrot and the stick. I simply use whichever is most effective for the situation." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression darkening momentarily before he composed himself. "You should rest. Tomorrow will be busy." "Is it about Ray?" I asked, tension coiling in my stomach. "That message?" Vincent studied me for a long moment. "Yes. There's been a complication. Nothing for you to worry about. If it involves Ray, it involves me," I insisted, setting down my wine glass. "Please, I need to know." He sighed almost imperceptibly. "Ray Miller is no longer in Boston. My men intercepted him outside a bar where he'd been drinking since leaving the estate. He's being transported to a location where he can't harm you or anyone else. Is he—" I couldn't finish the question. "Alive?" "Yes, as per your wishes." His tone made it clear he thought my mercy was misplaced. "He'll be given a choice. Leave the country with enough money to start over elsewhere, or face consequences that he won't survive. Most men choose self-preservation." Relief washed over me, followed immediately by guilt. Had I just sentenced Ray to exile? And why did that make me feel guilty when he had hurt me so many times? "Thank you." I said softly. For respecting my wishes. Vincent inclined his head slightly. Get some sleep, Eliza. Your new life begins tomorrow. That night, I dreamed of cages. Golden, beautiful cages with open doors. In the dream, I kept walking back inside even though I could have flown away. I woke gasping, drenched in sweat, the first light of dawn seeping through the curtains. After showering, I found clothes laid out on the bed, a simple but elegant black dress I didn't remember seeing in the closet the day before, with a note. Breakfast at 7. Wear this. V. The handwriting was strong and angular, much like the man himself. I dressed quickly, noting how perfectly the dress fit, as if it had been made for me. It covered my bruises completely while remaining professional and understated. Vincent was already at the dining table when I emerged, dressed in another impeccable suit, scrolling through his phone while drinking coffee. He looked up as I entered, his eyes making a quick assessment. Good, he said simply, then gestured to the seat beside him where a place was set. Coffee? I nodded, taking the seat. Did Ray make his choice? Vincent's expression revealed nothing as he poured coffee into a waiting cup. He did. I waited for elaboration, but none came. The message was clear. That chapter was closed. Whether Ray had chosen exile or the alternative wasn't my concern anymore. Today you'll accompany me to several meetings, Vincent continued, pushing a tablet across the table. Your schedule is on here, along with information about each person we'll be meeting. Memorize what you can. Any questions they ask you, defer to me unless I indicate otherwise. I scrolled through the schedule. 4 meetings, lunch at an exclusive restaurant I'd only read about in magazines, then back to the penthouse by 6. What should I say if they ask about my role? The truth. You're my new personal assistant. He sipped his coffee, watching me over the rim. Nothing more, nothing less. The elevator chimed, and Marco entered carrying a sleek leather briefcase. Car's ready downstairs, sir. Vincent stood, buttoning his jacket in one smooth motion. Shall we? The day passed in a blur of luxury cars, upscale offices, and powerful people who treated Vincent with a mixture of respect and fear. I observed more than I participated, noting how Vincent's demeanor shifted subtly with each person we met. Charming with the banker, coldly professional with the real estate developer, quietly menacing with the nervous man who owned a chain of restaurants. By the time we returned to the penthouse that evening, I had a much clearer picture of Vincent Bellamy's empire, legitimate businesses intertwined with others that operated in shadier territories. He was careful, never explicitly discussing anything illegal, but the implications were there in coded language and meaningful glances. You did well today, he said, as we rode the private elevator up to the penthouse. You observed, you listened, you didn't speak out of turn. I'm a quick learner, I replied, exhausted but oddly exhilarated. There was something intoxicating about being in Vincent's orbit, watching him command rooms with nothing more than his presence. The elevator doors opened, and Vincent placed his hand lightly on the small of my back as we stepped into the penthouse. The casual touch sent an unexpected warmth through me. Are you hungry? He asked, removing his suit jacket and draping it over a chair. Before I could answer, his phone rang. The transformation was immediate, his relaxed demeanor vanishing, replaced by cold fury as he listened to whoever was on the other end. When? He demanded, his voice deadly quiet. Find him. Now. He ended the call, his expression murderous. What's wrong? I asked, fear creeping back into my chest. Vincent's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I glimpsed the truly dangerous man beneath the polished exterior. Ray Miller has escaped. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. What? How? It seems your ex-husband is more resourceful than we anticipated. Vincent was already texting, his movements sharp with barely controlled rage. He overpowered one of my men during transport and disappeared. That was several hours ago. Terror gripped me. He'll come looking for me. Yes, Vincent agreed, his voice hard. But he won't find you. Not here. This building has the best security in Boston. As if to underscore his point, the elevator chimed again, and 4 men entered. Security personnel I recognized from earlier in the day. Vincent spoke to them in rapid, low tones, issuing instructions. They nodded and dispersed throughout the apartment, checking windows and doors. Vincent returned to me. His expression softened slightly. "You're safe, Eliza. I promise you that." I wanted to believe him, but the cold fear in my stomach wouldn't subside. Ray was out there, more desperate and dangerous than ever. And now he wouldn't just be coming for me, he'd be coming for Vincent too. "This is my fault," I whispered. "If I had just agreed to let you handle him permanently." Vincent placed his hands on my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. "This is not your fault. This is Ray's choice, and he will pay for it." The intensity in his eyes should have frightened me, but instead it made me feel strangely protected. For the first time in years, someone was standing between me and Ray. Someone Ray couldn't intimidate, or bribe, or outmuscle. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," Vincent said, his hands still on my shoulders. "We wait. My men will find him. And when they do..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. We stayed in the penthouse for 3 days, the security presence constant. Vincent conducted business by phone and video conference, never leaving me alone for more than a few minutes. We fell into an odd domestic rhythm, sharing meals, working side by side in the living room, Vincent teaching me the intricacies of his business operations. At night, I would retire to my room alone, hyper-aware of Vincent's presence just down the hall. The attraction I felt toward him was confusing and inappropriate. He was my employer, my protector, possibly a criminal. And yet, I couldn't deny the electricity that sparked whenever he was near. On the third night, I was awakened by shouting. I rushed into the hallway to find Vincent barking orders into his phone, his face a mask of cold fury. "What's happening?" I asked when he disconnected. Vincent's eyes met mine, and my blood ran cold at what I saw there. "He's here." "Here? In the building?" My voice rose with panic. "No." Vincent's tone was clipped, controlled, but I could see the fury simmering beneath the surface. He was spotted outside. Surveillance picked him up 3 blocks away, watching the entrance. Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by renewed fear. How did he find this place? That's what I intend to find out. Vincent moved to a panel on the wall, punching in a code that opened to reveal an array of security monitors. The screens showed different angles of the building's exterior, the garage, the lobby. "Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone but me or Marco." "Where are you going?" I grabbed his arm before I could think better of it. He looked down at my hand, then back at my face. "To end this." "No." The word escaped me with more force than I intended. "Please, Vincent, don't go down there. He could be armed. He could be waiting for you specifically." Something flickered in Vincent's eyes, surprise perhaps at my concern for his safety. "I don't go anywhere unprotected, Eliza." "Then send your men, please." I was still holding his arm, could feel the tension in his muscles beneath the expensive fabric of his shirt. "I can't. I couldn't bear it if you got hurt because of me." Vincent studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he raised his hand to brush a strand of hair from my face, his touch gentle despite the violence I knew those hands were capable of. "Why do you care what happens to me?" The question caught me off guard. Why did I care? Vincent Bellamy was dangerous, powerful, possibly a criminal. And yet, in the few days I had known him, he had shown me more consideration and protection than anyone ever had. "Because you've done more for me than anyone else ever has," I whispered. "You saw me when I was invisible to everyone else." His expression softened almost imperceptibly. He cupped my cheek in his palm, and I found myself leaning into his touch. "I saw you because I recognized something in you, Eliza. Strength. Resilience. Even when you were on your knees cleaning my floors, there was a fire in you that Ray couldn't extinguish." My breath caught at his words. No one had ever described me as strong before. In Ray's world, I had been weak, pathetic, lucky to have him. In Vincent's eyes, I was something else entirely. The moment stretched between us, charged with unspoken tension. Then his phone buzzed, breaking the spell. He checked it, his expression hardening once more. "They've lost visual on him," he said, dropping his hand from my face. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me." This time I let him go, watching as he pressed the elevator call button. Before stepping inside, he turned back to me. "Eliza, Yes? If anything happens to me, Marco has instructions to get you far away from here. Somewhere Ray will never find you. The elevator doors closed before I could respond, leaving me alone in the penthouse that had become both sanctuary and prison. I locked the door as instructed, then paced the living room, checking the security monitors every few minutes. The cameras showed Vincent and 4 security men exiting the building, spreading out to search the surrounding area. My heart pounded as I watched Vincent move with predatory grace, his hand inside his jacket where I suspected he carried a weapon. Hours passed with no sign of Ray. Eventually, Vincent and his men returned to the building. I unlocked the door as soon as I heard the elevator approaching, relief washing over me when Vincent stepped out, unharmed. "No sign of him," he said, loosening his tie. But he was definitely here. The convenience store owner across the street confirmed it, said a man matching Ray's description was asking questions about the building, specifically about the penthouse. Ice settled in my stomach. He knows I'm here. It appears so. Vincent poured himself a drink, his movements controlled but tense. "Which means someone talked. Someone told him where to find you. Who would do that? Who even knows I'm here besides you and your men?" Vincent's expression was cold. "That's what I'm going to find out." The next day was tense, the atmosphere in the penthouse thick with unspoken danger. Vincent doubled the security detail and canceled all his in-person meetings, working from the home office while keeping me within sight at all times. That afternoon, Marco arrived with a tablet, showing Vincent something that made his jaw clench. They spoke in low voices, occasionally glancing in my direction. Finally, Vincent gestured for me to join them. "We found his informant," Vincent said without preamble, "a valet from my estate. Ray paid him $5,000 for information on your whereabouts." "What will you do to him?" I asked, almost afraid of the answer. "That's not your concern." Vincent's tone was final. "What matters is that we now have a way to track Ray." "How?" "The valet has agreed to cooperate. He's setting up a meeting with Ray tonight, claiming to have more information about your routine here. The plan was clear. Use the valet as bait, trap Ray when he showed up, and... Then what? I didn't ask. Part of me didn't want to know. As evening approached, the tension in the penthouse ratcheted higher. Vincent was constantly on his phone, receiving updates from his men who were positioned around the meeting location, an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the city. The valet had convinced Ray that Vincent stored valuable items there, including information about my schedule and security details. "He's taken the bait," Vincent announced at 9 p.m., a cold smile playing at his lips. "Ray's been spotted approaching the warehouse." I should have felt relieved. This would all be over soon. Instead, I felt hollow, as if watching the final act of a tragedy I had unwittingly helped script. "What will happen to him?" Vincent's eyes met mine. "What do you want to happen to him, Eliza?" The question hung between us, weighted with implication. Did I want Ray dead? Did I want him to suffer? Or did I just want him gone, out of my life forever? I closed my eyes, searching for the truth within myself. I want him to never hurt anyone again, me or any other woman. But I don't want to be the reason for more violence in the world. Vincent's expression was unreadable. "Sometimes violence is the only language men like Ray understand." "I know," I whispered. "But it doesn't have to be death. Make him understand that if he ever comes near me again, if he ever hurts another woman..." Then I trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Vincent nodded slowly. "I understand." He sent a text, then looked back at me. "It will be handled according to your wishes." An hour later, Vincent's phone rang. He answered, listening intently, his expression giving nothing away. When he hung up, he turned to me. "It's done," he said simply. "Is he..." I couldn't finish the question. "Alive?" "Yes." "In considerable pain?" "Also yes." Vincent moved to the bar, pouring 2 drinks. He handed one to me. "Ray Miller has been convinced that returning to Boston or attempting to contact you again would be the last mistake he ever makes. He's currently on a cargo ship bound for Europe with a one-way ticket and just enough money to start over somewhere far away." Relief flooded through me, my knees weakening so suddenly that I had to sit down. It was over. Ray was gone. The nightmare that had consumed 6 years of my life had ended not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a forced exile orchestrated by the dangerous man now sitting beside me. "Thank you," I whispered. My voice choked with emotion. Vincent studied me, his blue eyes intent. "You're free now, Eliza. You can do whatever you want." "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said carefully, "that your employment with me was contingent on your need for protection. That need has been eliminated. If you wish to leave, to start over somewhere else, I won't stop you. I'll provide you with enough resources to begin a new life." The offer stunned me. I had assumed... what? That I was now permanently tied to Vincent Bellamy? That I had traded one form of control for another? "You would let me go? Just like that?" Something flickered in his eyes, pain, perhaps, or resignation. "I don't keep people caged, Eliza. Not even golden cages." The echo of my dream sent a shiver through me. I looked around the luxurious penthouse that had been my sanctuary for only a few days, but had somehow begun to feel like home. I thought about returning to a normal life, a modest apartment, a regular job, ordinary people who had never orchestrated the exile of an abusive ex-husband, or moved through the world with the deadly grace of a predator. And then I looked at Vincent, this dangerous, complex man who had seen me when I was invisible, who had protected me when no one else would, who was now offering me freedom when he could have easily kept me bound to him. "What if I don't want to leave?" The words escaped before I could consider their implications. Vincent went very still. "What are you saying, Eliza?" "I'm saying that for the first time in years I feel safe, valued." I set my glass down, gathering my courage. "I'm good at this job. I'm learning quickly. And I feel something when I'm with you. Something I've never felt before." "Be very careful," Vincent warned, his voice low. "I am not a good man, Eliza. The things I've done, the things I'm capable of doing, they would terrify you." "You're right," I acknowledged. "They would. They do. But so does the thought of going back to a world where I'm alone and unprotected. At least with you, the danger has a name and a face. At least with you, I know where I stand." Vincent set his glass down and moved closer to me on the sofa, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. "Where exactly do you think you stand with me?" My heart raced, but I held his gaze. "I think I stand at a crossroads. I think you want me in ways that go beyond a simple employer-employee relationship. And I think I might want that too." His hand came up to cup my face, his touch gentle despite the danger I knew those hands were capable of. "If you stay, Eliza, it won't be just as my assistant. I want to be clear about that." "I know," I whispered. "I protect what's mine," he said, echoing his words from days ago, "and I would consider you mine in every way." Instead of fear, his possessive words sent a thrill through me. After years of being treated as worthless by Ray, the idea of being valued, protected, desired by someone as powerful as Vincent was intoxicating. "I understand," I said, leaning slightly into his touch. Vincent's eyes darkened. Slowly, deliberately, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to mine. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning, but when I responded, it deepened into something hungry and primal. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me against his chest, and I surrendered to the sensation of being completely enveloped by him. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Vincent rested his forehead against mine. "Are you certain this is what you want, Eliza? Once we cross this line, there's no going back." In answer, I kissed him again, pouring all my newfound courage into the gesture. His hands tightened around me, and in one fluid motion, he lifted me into his arms. I gasped in surprise as he carried me down the hallway toward his bedroom. Vincent's room was larger than mine, dominated by a massive bed with dark sheets. He set me down gently at the foot of it, his eyes never leaving mine as he slowly unbuttoned his shirt. The scars scattered across his torso told stories of violence and survival that made my breath catch. I reached out, tracing one that curved along his ribs. "War," he said simply, answering my unasked question, "before I became what I am now." I wanted to ask more, to understand the path that had led this man to become so dangerous and powerful, but his lips found mine again, and thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. His hands were gentle as they slid the straps of my dress down my shoulders, so different from Ray's rough pawing. When the fabric revealed the yellowing bruises on my arms, Vincent's expression darkened. He pressed his lips to each mark, as if he could erase the pain with his touch. "Never again," he whispered against my skin. "No one will ever hurt you like this again." We moved to the bed, where Vincent laid me down with surprising tenderness. What followed was nothing like the mechanical routine Ray had established during our marriage. Vincent was attentive, responsive, reading my body's signals with the same intensity he brought to his business dealings. For the first time, I understood what it meant to be truly desired, to be the complete focus of someone's attention. Afterward, lying in his arms as the city lights twinkled beyond the windows, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Vincent's fingers traced lazy patterns on my back, his breath warm against my hair. "Tell me something true," I whispered into the comfortable silence. He was quiet for so long, I thought he might not answer. Finally he spoke. "I recognized the bruises on your arms that day, because my mother had similar ones. My father was not a kind man." I raised my head to look at him, seeing vulnerability in his eyes for the first time. "What happened to them?" "My father died when I was 17. Car accident." His voice was neutral, but something in his expression made me wonder if it had truly been an accident. "My mother passed 5 years later. Cancer. I'm sorry," I said, settling back against his chest. "It was a long time ago." His arms tightened around me, "But seeing those marks on you, it brought it all back. Is that why you helped me? Because of your mother?" Vincent considered this, perhaps partly, but mostly because I saw something in you worth protecting, a fire that hadn't been extinguished, despite everything he'd done to try. We fell asleep tangled together, my head on his chest, his arm wrapped protectively around me. For the first time in years, I slept without nightmares. Morning brought a subtle shift in our dynamic. Vincent was still the powerful, dangerous man I had come to know, but there was a new softness in how he looked at me, a possessive tenderness in his touch as he kissed me before heading to his office to make calls. "We'll need to move you into my room properly," he said as we had breakfast, "and discuss your role going forward." "My role?" His eyes met mine over the rim of his coffee cup. "You're still my assistant, Eliza. That doesn't change. But now you're also my woman. That comes with certain adjustments." The possessive term should have alarmed me, but instead, it sent a pleasant warmth through my chest. "What kind of adjustments?" "Security, primarily. You'll never go anywhere without protection. Your schedule will need to accommodate mine, and there will be social obligations. Events where you'll be expected to accompany me." He reached across the table to take my hand. "The world I inhabit is dangerous, Eliza. My enemies would see you as a way to get to me." The reality of what I was stepping into hit me fully then. I wasn't just becoming involved with a man. I was entering a world of power, danger, and complex allegiances. "I understand." Vincent squeezed my hand. "Do you? Truly? Because this is your last chance to walk away. I'll set you up somewhere safe, give you enough money to start over. No strings, no expectations." I considered his offer, forcing myself to think beyond the intoxication of his touch, his protection, his desire. Could I go back to a normal life after glimpsing this one? Did I want to? "I don't want to walk away," I said finally. "I want to be with you, Vincent, whatever that entails." His smile was both tender and predatory. "Then we begin today." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. As promised, my things were moved into Vincent's room. My role as his assistant expanded. I wasn't just managing his schedule now, but actively participating in meetings, learning the intricacies of his various businesses, becoming a partner rather than just an employee. In public, our relationship remained ostensibly professional, though anyone paying attention could see the subtle ways Vincent claimed me as his, a hand at the small of my back, the way his eyes sought mine across a room, how he positioned himself between me and any potential threat. In private, we explored each other with increasing intensity. Vincent was a passionate lover, by turns tender and commanding, always attuned to my responses. He seemed to take particular pleasure in erasing Ray's imprint on my body and mind, replacing fear with desire, pain with pleasure. 3 months after that first night together, Vincent took me to an exclusive restaurant overlooking the harbor. We were seated at a private table with panoramic views of the water, the city lights reflecting like fallen stars on the dark surface. "Are you happy, Eliza?" he asked unexpectedly as we finished our meal. I looked at him across the candlelit table, this dangerous, complex man who had remade my world. "Yes," I answered honestly. "Happier than I've ever been." Something in his expression softened. "Even knowing what I am, what I do?" I reached for his hand. "I know you operate outside the law sometimes. I know you're capable of violence, but I also know you protect what's yours, that you have a code." I paused. "And I know that you've never made me feel anything but safe and valued." Vincent's thumb traced circles on my palm. "I received confirmation today. Ray Miller is living in a small town in Romania, working construction. He hasn't attempted to contact anyone in Boston or access any information about you." The mention of Ray's name no longer sent fear coursing through me. "Good. He'll be monitored indefinitely," Vincent continued. "If he ever attempts to return or reach out to you, I'll know immediately." "Thank you," I said, meaning it. The knowledge that Ray was truly gone from my life, that he could never hurt me again, was a freedom I had once thought impossible. Vincent reached into his jacket pocket and removed a small velvet box. My breath caught as he placed it on the table between us. "I'm not a man who believes in half measures, Eliza," he said, his voice low and intense. "When I want something, I claim it completely, and I want you, not just in my bed or by my side at meetings, but in every aspect of my life." He opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond ring, elegant, expensive, but not ostentatious. "This isn't just jewelry. It's a statement to the world that you're mine, under my protection, that anyone who touches you answers to me." My heart raced. "Are you asking me to marry you?" "Yes," he said simply. "I want you to be my wife, to share my name, my home, my life." His blue eyes held mine. "I can't promise you a normal life, Eliza, but I can promise that you will never be invisible again, never be unprotected, never be unloved." Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. 6 months ago, I had been cleaning floors, hiding bruises, living in constant fear. Now I was being offered a life of luxury, protection, and power by a man who saw me, truly saw me, and wanted me anyway. "Yes," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Vincent slid the ring onto my finger, then raised my hand to his lips. "Mine," he murmured against my skin. "Yours," I agreed, understanding fully what that meant in his world. The wedding was small but elegant, held at Vincent's estate with only trusted associates in attendance. I wore a simple white gown that made Vincent's eyes darken when he first saw me walking toward him. The ceremony itself was brief, traditional vows exchanged with an intensity that made them feel like sacred promises. At the reception afterward, I noticed a subtle shift in how Vincent's associates treated me. With new deference, new caution, I wasn't just the boss's woman anymore. I was Mrs. Bellamy, a position that carried its own weight and power. As we danced our first dance as husband and wife, Vincent held me close. "Any regrets?" he murmured in my ear. I thought about the path that had led me here, the pain, the fear, the unexpected salvation. "Not one," I replied truthfully. "Good," he said, his lips brushing my temple. "Because you're mine now, Eliza, for better or worse." 6 months into our marriage, I stood in our penthouse bathroom, staring at the positive pregnancy test in my hands. Joy and trepidation warred within me. Joy at the new life growing inside me. Trepidation at bringing a child into Vincent's dangerous world. When I told him that night, his reaction surprised me. His face transformed with a vulnerability I'd rarely seen, his hands trembling slightly as they rested on my still flat stomach. "A family," he whispered, something like wonder in his voice, something I never thought I'd have. In that moment, I glimpsed the man beneath the dangerous exterior, a boy who had watched his mother suffer, who had lost his parents young, who had built an empire on fear and respect, but had always lacked the one thing money couldn't buy. A family who loved him, not for his power, but for himself. "We'll need to make changes," he said, his strategic mind already working. "Security upgrades at all properties, background checks on medical staff. Perhaps relocate to the estate full-time. It's more defensible." I placed my hands over his. "We'll figure it out together." His eyes met mine, intense and sincere. "I will keep you both safe, Eliza, no matter what it takes." "I know," I said simply, because I did know. Vincent Bellamy was many things. Dangerous, powerful, ruthless when necessary. But he was also a man of his word. He protected what was his. And now, that included not just me, but the child we had created together. As Vincent pulled me into his embrace, I reflected on the strange path my life had taken. The bruises that had once marked my skin had faded, along with the fear that had been my constant companion for years. In their place was something I had never expected to find, especially not with a man like Vincent. Love, security, and the promise of a future where I would never again be invisible. The Mafia boss who had noticed my bruises had indeed made my ex-husband vanish, but in the process, he had helped me find myself, and a life I never could have imagined.